You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to this episode of the Business of Practice podcast, where we focus on the business and human sides of equine veterinary medicine. In this episode, we're going to talk to Dr. Miranda Gosselin about her experiences with inventory control in a 6-doctor ambulatory practice. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Grice, business consultant and former equine practice owner. The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you in 2024 by CareCredit. Dr. Miranda Gosselin grew up on a thoroughbred breeding farm in Buckley, Washington, where she was actively involved in all the different aspects of the operation. She attended Smith College with a major in neuroscience, after which she earned her DVM from the Washington State University School of Veterinary Medicine. She then completed an internship at Brazos Valley Equine Hospital. After several years with her own solo practice in Texas, Dr. Gosselin joined Millbrook Equine in Millbrook, New York in 2011, where she is one of 3 partners owners. Dr. Gosselin is an active member of the AAEP, serving on the Wellness Committee, and shows a strong commitment to equine veterinary sustainability through her work with EPIC, the Equine Purchasing and Inventory Company, and with the Cavalcade Education Group, a joint venture management company created by the partners of Millbrook Equine, Rhinebeck Equine, and Oakencroft Equine. This group hosts educational events for veterinary students on an annual basis. During her free time, Dr. Gosselin enjoys traveling, skiing, and spending time with her husband and their 2 sons. Welcome, Dr. Gosselin.
Thanks, Dr. Grice, for having me.
You know, so many veterinarians struggle with the time and the energy that is needed to manage their inventory, and a lot of times people just give up. Software systems struggle as well. It's very hard to find one that's very good at it. And so I'm eager to learn more about your experiences and the strategies that you found most effective in managing inventory, because it's a bear.
Absolutely.
What sparked your interest?
Well, I'd have to say that being in the trenches was what initially sparked my interest. I think when I owned my own practice as a solo, I simply had a truck and I filled the spaces in the truck, and then I sold the drugs that were in those spaces. And I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about how much I should have in those spaces. It was just simply like, what drugs do I think I need to operate? Which spaces should I be filling with which drugs? And then hoped that I didn't end up with drugs that were expired. It wasn't until I became a partner here at Millbrook Equine and I was in a situation that I needed to help manage inventory for a larger practice that I started looking at what was on the shelf. And it wasn't simply about what was in my truck and filling those spaces. It was like, what's on the shelf? And I started to look at those items on the shelf, not just as boxes of meds, but actually as dollars. And in that moment, when I got so that I was actually reading financial statements and understanding that one of your biggest expenses is your inventory and your drugs and your supplies, that I was like, wow, this isn't something where you just order an arbitrary amount and fill the spaces. This is really about choosing the right amount so that you weren't tying up all of your cash in inventory. So I was really fortunate. I was part of the Oculus Business School that happened right about the same time I became a partner. And so that's how I really started to understand how to read our financials and how to understand that inventory is important and it does need to be managed. So I was grateful for that opportunity, but it also inspired me to spend some time and start talking to my team and my partners more about it.
What do you think when you're managing inventory are the most important elements to be focused on?
I think that understanding the seasonality of your practice and understanding which products you're going to be using at what time of the year is really important. So, if you have a good practice management software, you can drill down on that and really understand, okay, should I be buying plasma that I'm going to give foals? Should I be buying that in September? Should I have a fully stocked freezer of plasma in September? Or is that something that I should really think about stocking in like January, February, March? So that's a perfect example. Like, you don't need to stock plasma year round, unless you're a practice that has that seasonal demand that extends further out just past breeding season. So I think that really understanding the seasonality is important. And if your practice management software can't help you do that, then you're in a situation where you need to either figure out how to have spreadsheets to support your practice management software, or you need better, more robust practice management software.
The Business of Practice podcast is brought to you by CareCredit. CareCredit keeps equine veterinarians at the heart of care by providing horse owners with simple, budget-friendly financing options. By helping to bridge the gap between costs and care, CareCredit supports healthy financial relationships between veterinarians and their clients. Clients have a flexible way to pay over time for all types of care, and practices get paid in 2 business days. It's a payment experience everyone can feel good about.
It really makes sense, and it is hard with a lot of people. So many, like almost somewhere between 40 and 60% of equine practitioners are solo.
Yeah.
And so having robust practice management software isn't always something that they invest in. And so I love the idea of, having spreadsheets and thinking about it just in a reasonable, thoughtful way, even if you don't have, $120,000 of inventory on, in your pharmacy.
Absolutely.
So, in looking at Epic's website, I saw that the mission, and I'll read it, is to achieve industry-leading cost savings on veterinary drugs, supplies, equipment, and beyond, and create the industry's best source of solutions to inventory management challenges in an educational network. That sounds fascinating. Tell our listeners about how it operates and how it is helping practices, because I've heard great things.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Epic. I am on the board of Epic, and it's a group of practices that came together about 5 years ago that started from an original nucleus of probably half a dozen to a dozen practices that were interested in achieving cost savings and negotiating cost savings in a market that was getting more and more competitive from the involvement of corporate ownership. So corporate ownership of practices. So this was a response to that pressure. And then we were able to put together some partnerships with industry partners. And then became a thing where we were like, well, we become more powerful, if you will. We have more strength in negotiating if we have more practices that come on board. And organically, it has grown to, I think we have over 150 practices, and the majority of them are solo practices. And that's really exciting to me because it's not really just about big, giant practices that can throw their weight around and negotiate for something. This is really about, mom and pop, smaller solo and 2-doctor practices. That's the majority of what our membership is. And so we try to do a couple of things. We try to, first and foremost, we're looking to negotiate cost savings, upfront cost savings for our practices with our partners. But we're also looking to provide educational opportunities on inventory management and other aspects of equine practice. So our executive director, Danica Dostal, hosts a monthly webinar that is focused on the purchasers for each of these practices so that they can understand the whys of how to do these inventory management techniques, so that everybody gets better and is more educated and we're all better as a group, right? And then we also do an annual meeting that is an opportunity for networking among the practices, but it's also an opportunity to educate. And we have multiple tracks. We have a track for purchasers and support staff. We also have a track for owners. And then we're kind of dabbling in another track that is a little bit more focused on associates that are interested in ownership. Because just like I know you agree with this, I think ownership is a really important part of practice. And
Absolutely.
if you're interested, like, it's the best way to make money.
And the more you know going into it, the more prepared you are to, ease into ownership and feel confident that you'll be successful. So I love that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really great. It's a really positive environment, and but we're also very transparent about what are the challenges, and people that have been owners for a number of years are not afraid to share what's hard out there, and what their solutions have been. And I love that about this group. So anyway, that's basically, we've also kind of delved a little into the recruitment and retention arena, because that's become a really important aspect, I think, of all practitioners. And since we represent equine practitioners, we saw that as a need and something that we should also try to dedicate resources to. So one of the things we've done on that end was we developed a website called equinevetted.com. And the idea behind that website is to improve transparency for students, veterinary students that are looking at what the externship opportunities are like out there. And not all externship opportunities are the same. And so this was a way to challenge ourselves and our peers to improve the quality of those externship experiences. Just through giving students an opportunity to leave anonymous reviews. So we encourage people to be positive again, because we do not want it to be a negative complaint fest, but it is something that we're hoping is another tool, another part of what's going on within our profession to raise the bar and help our profession meet standards that are absolutely possible for us.
How long has that website been operating, and how do you feel like it's going?
We rolled it out 2 AEPs ago, like right before AEP. And then we have been trying to talk about it every time we have any kind of event that's going on. We'll try to send business cards to an EPIC member that they can help circulate and talk about it. It's pretty organically, word of mouth spreading. I do think that we're hoping that it will replace, we talk about each school has their Bible, if you will, of reviews, and we'd hope that it will replace that so that students that are located at Long Island can get reviews that somebody wrote at Colorado State. So could it be growing faster? Yes. But I also think that hopefully it's growing, that people are seeing it and are using it as a resource, and it's helping them shape their decisions.
Right. It is hard actually to reach students. Students are protected in many ways by their schools from, people on the outside trying to, garner into their time and attention. But I wonder if those that are having externs come in, if maybe a way to do it is to have veterinarians start saying to their externs, here is a website where if you've had a good experience, I hope that you will put a good review up here.
Yeah. As part of your or exit interview, if you will, maybe to say, hey, there is an opportunity for you to leave a review for us. We'd really value it if you could.
Yeah.
Because I think that there are some practices that are up there that have a number of very strong reviews. And I think that helps them to drive more traffic to their programs.
Absolutely.
And
it can't help but do that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, and we don't want people to end up in programs where it's unlikely that they're going to have a positive experience. So it's a little bit of everything. It's like encouraging our peers to do better, but also like trying to help shape students' experiences so that it can be as positive and as possible.
Going back to Epic, our listeners may be looking to find out more about Epic. And in the past, I know that it's been a little tough to have the Epic website pop up. Would you share the website address with us so that if anybody who's listening now would be able to find it?
Absolutely. So I searched it earlier. And I was able to find it pretty much right away.
Oh, good.
It is epiccooperative.com. So
that's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yep, it is. epiccooperative.com. All
right.
And then it's pretty straightforward. It says, get in touch. And it will link you to our executive director, Danica. And then either that or, if you hear about, you're always free to talk to members about their experiences. I think the most common question I get is like, what's the catch? I don't know why that as a group, we're so sure that like there's something in there that's going to be negative, but there really isn't a catch. I do think that some people may struggle because we do have preferred industry partners, and there are some aspects of it that do involve compliance. But the idea behind this is very much to improve your opportunity at reducing costs in medications and supplies.
It's absolutely necessary to have, if you're delivering market share to a company in order for them to lower their price for the members, if you're not delivering the market share, your credibility's out the window. So It's just important that people understand that there's a reason why there's some compliance, whether their requirements are just, desirable, because otherwise it won't work at all. So what do you think is the most useful tip that listeners could benefit from about inventory?
I think the most important thing is it's really easy for us as practitioners to just put our head down and go to work. And we don't want to spend time on looking at the spreadsheets. Most of us, some of us really do like spreadsheets, but we don't want to take time looking at the spreadsheets. Don't want to take the time to think about wastage. The other piece of it is like, it's an important thing to get buy-in from your team. Like, it doesn't have to be you doing all of the work as the practice owner or the veterinarian, unless you're a single man show. If you're it, then you're going to need to find a way to spend a little time looking at it. But there are other people out there that can help you that don't need to be full-time employees also, that can help you look through this information. But the biggest thing I think is if you have a team, you need to have your team, there needs to be buy-in on the part of your team. And you can't simply just cram this down people's throats and say, okay, now we're going to do weekly counts when you've never done counts before ever. I think you just kind of bite off small sections and try to get people to understand the why behind doing it. And it does get easier. They start to realize, oh, wow, when I do a weekly count, or if I do a daily perusal of what's in those slots in the truck, I realize that something got pulled. And then I can ask the question of, did we bill for this? And so all of those things are really important. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's money. And if you are trying to make money as a practice owner, which I think we are, that is getting harder and harder. And so it's important to make sure and reduce any of the wastage that's going on. And because inventory is such a big piece of your cost of goods, like this is a place where you need to spend some time.
I remember Andy Clark saying to me, so what's the value of the inventory here in the pharmacy? And I said, about 120,000. And he said, so would you leave $120,000 in $1 bills on the shelf and like never count it and just trust that it's always going to be there?
Yeah, probably not.
I loved how he put it that way. It is remarkable when you think about, say, you spent $30 on a bottle of whatever, and it goes out of the pharmacy and goes to a client, and you forget to put it on your invoice. Depending on your markup, like how many more do you have to sell before you even make up the $30 that you lost? And, because it's the markup where you're going to get back to zero. And meanwhile, you're not making anything on the other ones. I mean, it's awful. So I think when people understand that connection, like you said, the why, it makes it much easier for them to understand the connection between their ability to, maybe have a raise or better benefits or whatever it is with managing the things, the assets, and the inventory is an asset. So, yeah.
We've definitely also moved away from insisting only on selling inventory out of the back of our trucks. We have, for a number of years, had an online pharmacy. And so that's been another nice tool because you can sell a bottle if you need to, and then write a prescription or sell them something out of your online pharmacy so that they're getting it at a reduced cost, but they're still continuing to get the same quality product that they need to get for their pet or for their horse. Right. So that's been a big thing, and that helps to keep our inventory leaner. Is just being smart about thinking about having the online pharmacy as an additional tool.
Right.
The other thing I forgot to mention about Epic that I really wanted to say is one of the things that we've done is tried to move away from being so rebate focused. So most of the original people in the group, most of the original practitioners were looking for a way to get away from the buying frenzy that takes place during AEP and at the end of the year. And so we were hoping that we could establish partnerships with industry partners where they would take a risk and move away from that model. And because we'd spent enough time, and especially Danica had spent a lot of time looking at how rebates were paid back to individual practices, and that there is a lot of error in that. And most of us don't have a staff member that we can dedicate to tracking down to make sure that our rebates are paid appropriately.
And it's so confusing. I mean, like the percentage rebate you get on one thing is different than another, and there's different, it's a mess. Yeah.
So we just kept advocating for that over and over. Every industry partner that we talk to, we just want to get away from the rebate program. We want to try to get away from, we can't talk about trying to keep a leaner inventory, and then encourage all of our members to go out and buy like crazy at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Right.
reasons behind doing that, but like it just goes in the face of what we're trying to teach our members. So that's been another thing, is we're just trying to look for partners, industry partners that are interested in taking a risk, that are willing to like think outside the box a little and recognize that this may be different, but it could be really something amazing. And so we're really thrilled, and we're excited with how much it's grown. Epic has grown, and hopefully it will continue to grow.
Right, because the more members you have, the stronger your negotiating position.
Absolutely.
Well, as we end, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
No, I think I've captured all of the points that I wanted to discuss.
That's great. I really appreciate you joining us today, Dr. Gosselin. And thank you all for listening to the Business of Practice podcast. And a great big thanks to our sponsor, CareCredit. And to all my listeners out there, be brave, embrace change.